So in the next section, the panel discussion is going to explore how we can tackle fashion waste by upcycling denim. So I'll have to give you some context when we talk about fashion waste. So we're talking about close to 400 tons of textile waste being dumped to the landfill every day. That's 200 pieces of garments every 10 seconds. And we're talking about in Hong Kong alone. So let's hear and take a look at what solutions our community can engage in so that the denim industry can also play a positive role in alleviating this fashion waste problem. So without further ado, may I now invite the moderator of this section, Him Lo, the chief curator of In Time Of for Nan Fung Group. Let's welcome him. Let's also welcome our panelists to come onto the stage. They are Bertha Shum, CEO and founder of Earthero project. Let's welcome Bertha. We've got some fans over there. Okay, and also we'd like to welcome Janko Lam, director of Classics Anew. Let's welcome Janko. And also Kay Wong, the creative director of Fashion Clinic, and Matt Hui, fashion director of Fashion Clinic. Let's welcome them onto the stage. All right, the topic of this panel discussion is upcycling denim, and I'll pass the time to him.
Hi everyone, this is Him Lo here, and I'm from Nan Fung Group. I am the chief curator of In Time Of, and mainly focus on culture and community program for Nan Fung Group and In Time Of our campaign. So we are very happy to have this designer, upcycling group, and artists here. So I think mainly today we want to see how you guys work, especially in Hong Kong. When we talk about upcycling denim or this kind of sustainability issue, how you guys balance your work, your attitude, and in the previous section, we talk about greenwash. As a maker, as a designer and artist, how you deal with this kind of problem, or how you work with the bigger company, and how you keep your momentum to be pure and achieve what you want to do in this industry. So I think you guys can have some 5 minutes to introduce what you are working on first, and we can have some question. So Bertha, do you want to go first?
Okay. I thought that was the question, and it was a very big question. So very quickly, I run a company called Earthero project, and also Earthero. So we did first Asia Sustainable Wearable Art Exhibition in January, which includes a very special collection that I work with local artists to upcycle, in the sense that they actually hand-painted on the jackets, and it's one of one, and we sold it for charity. So our brand is a combination of using dead stock fabric only, and mostly natural fabrics, so like cotton, hemp, linen, and upcycle it into very limited pieces, because we're trying to avoid producing too much stuff. So that's, in a sense, what I do.
Okay, I think I need to use the Chinese to present myself. It's okay.
Yeah.
OK， 因為我自己覺得係用中文會表達得好啲。咁我自己咧就叫 Janko， 係新莊園 shop 同埋華貨學堂嘅創辦人。咁我點樣用我自己嘅牌子或者我哋嘅學堂去推廣呢一個嘅中式嘅文化，或者係牛仔文化或者環保嘅概念咧？咁其實我哋就用咗我哋自己嘅品牌，就希望將中式嘅嘢咧係形象化去即係可能時尚啲。咁所以牛仔對於我哋嚟講咧係好重要一個 material， 係可以令到啲人係更加親民地去接觸到中國式嘅服飾嘅時候，其實可以好似牛仔咁係好 casual， 可以容易係同我哋平日嘅生活入邊可以日日都用得到嘅牛仔，我相信每個人屋企都有。咁然後我哋喺華貨學堂上面咧，其實我哋就係用教學去推廣呢一個嘅文化同埋個工藝，令到啲人有環保嘅概念，就係當你經過教學去自己親手一針一 線去做一件衫嘅時候，其實你會知道個過程係點樣環保，或者係點樣去有佢個服裝嘅價值喺度。咁然後我哋透過教學去令到我哋嘅觀眾去知道啊，環保係一件咩回事咁樣咯，係啦，或者中式嘅服裝。
Yeah, thanks Janko to give us a introduction about what she is working on in the past few years. And as I know, Janko is a designer who mainly focus on Chinese traditional clothing and design. And in her project, as I see, quite a lot of time, besides design the item itself, she did quite a lot of learning program. And through those programs to visualize how the culture influenced us from the past and from the tradition, especially how we pass those knowledge to next generation. And I think it's very meaningful, and it's good to have denim to be the major material you use. I think we can have more introduction later in the questioning section. Yeah. So, Kate.
Hi, I'm Kay. I'm creative director at Fashion Clinic. So this clinic started in 2018. I used to actually run my own label for 10 years called Daydream Nation. And 10 years later, I realized actually there are so many problems in the fashion industry that we really need to deal with. So I kind of closed my studio and shops, went to Copenhagen, experienced the slow life, came back and restarted. So it all started with not wanting to use any more virgin material, and then slowly started working with theater and art groups on upcycling sets and costume design. And we also felt that, we started slowly, providing this repair, reshape, redesign service for individuals so that people can come to us with their individual pieces to be reworked on. And this is when I gradually met Matt, who's a star embroidery specialist, knitwear and fashion designer. So he waved at me like, oh my God, what you're doing is so great. Can I join you?
Hi, I'm Matt. I just lost my word. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm sorry. Yes, that was when I met Kay, and then I found what she did was very interesting. And then we actually teamed up 2 years ago with another 2 designers who, one of them was a jeweler, and then the other one is a milliner. So we want to kind of make that redesign and reshape surface to be more all-rounded from head to toe. So you can start from your hat to your jewelry and even your clothing, everything that in your wardrobe that could be upcycled into something. So since 2 years ago, we started collaborating with different company, and then just very recently in July, we had a collaboration collection that with Calvin Klein that was sold in Hong Kong.
Okay, thanks. Now, before I ask you guys some question, I want to give our audience one question first. For example, imagine I am, you get a call today, I get a call today, and I ask you, hey, I have 3,000 waste bags, all new, and I give it to you. And do you have any idea how to upcycling it, or how not to waste these 3,000 bags? Do you guys have any idea how to deal with it? Yes, because I think this kind of group, our speaker or designer and artist and upcycling group on the stage, I think they got quite a lot of calls or email or things like this from any companies, groups. Suddenly they will tell you, I have waste blanket, T-shirt, uniform, and you have to find a solution to solve their problem. This kind of situation, I think, is quite, I can't say it's a burden, But here, designer is people who solve problem. But like this kind of attitude, how it works or how it create problem for our designer in their daily life practice. So coming, I will ask them some question and see how they deal with this kind of problem and their attitude as well. So first, I want to ask Fashion Clinic, how do you see to work with bigger brand? And how do you balance the end goal in this kind of collaboration project?
I guess we can share our the biggest collaboration we've done so far with Calvin Klein. So what I'm wearing here is the denim jacket. That's denim jacket, the jeans. You're also wearing the jeans, and we've got. So we were given the task to upcycle 2,000 pair of jeans that were, surplus or just wasn't able to sell, like off-season stock. And the problem came because we have a tiny studio, you see. And when it came, I knew it was 2,000 pair of jeans, but I think when all the boxes arrived, we just couldn't work in the studio. Just exploded with boxes. So I think, land, rent, and space is like one of the biggest issues.
So like this kind of problem, when you work with not just bigger brand, but other stakeholder or people who want to work with you, do they know this kind of background information when they ask a group of upcycling artists or designer, they need space? So do they count in the budget for the storage space or for like this kind of?
So this is a special project, and we finally found an extra kind of space to work. But, all year round, people keep throwing things out. So I cannot tell people we have like a tiny storage, because people, we'll have an exploded studio and no space to work. So I can't really take any more. So for every project, people give us what they want to transform. We redesign and then give everything back.
Okay.
So, but it's a struggle. Like space is a struggle. What else is
Production is another struggle, because I think being sustainable is not just about designing sustainable product, but we also want the whole manufacturing process to be sustainable as well. So we try really hard to find a local manufacturer to make all these products, but then we all know how hard it is to...
And expensive.
Yes, and really expensive. And so manufacturing is another problem. And then the other thing is, I think we have like a lot of...
Leftover?
Well, not just leftover, but then, when we work on denim, we know that there are a lot of very specific details, and then you need to work with like very specific machines. And I think everything together just make it really difficult.
And I think production waste at the end is also another big issue, because as much as we try, there's going to be wastage when we cut, right? So we couldn't use every piece and bit of it because of time. Already we were creating this big window display, like a jungle of denim. Denim.
Yes, we actually
jungle.
designed a denim jungle installation.
The
as well.
capsule collection, and then we also had an in-store needle punching machine for people to turn the denim scraps into coasters. So we already tried our best to use everything, but
as much as we can.
As much as we can, but there were still, I think 10 boxes left behind.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing that Kay has just mentioned is about the price. I think there's a little bit of like misunderstanding between like designers and the big brands, that they think upcycling product shouldn't be that expensive. But then when you are upcycling one product, you need to take that product apart instead of just cutting it from fabric. So it actually takes much longer time.
And the design process is much more complicated.
I think this is a very interesting topic, and what we just mentioned about is beyond or before all those upcycling projects. Do our customer, do our company who want to get involved into this kind of upcycling industry, do we have enough knowledge to work on those projects? I think here, quite a lot of people, we have this experience. When we think about upcycling, and like what Kay just mentioned, is about like the space, we don't even have the space to store those waste material. How can we do the upcycling project? That's one point. Another thing is, before we get those waste material, what is the attitude for consumer or for general public? Do we have enough education to get it stopped at the beginning when we buy or when we sell? So I think for the upcycling industry, it's not just about design, it's about education as well. So we can see in general public or in the education system, do have like this kind of program to promote this idea. As I know some groups are doing like this kind of promotion or education campaign, but I think it's far from enough. I mean, far from good to do it. So this is one problem. And another problem is for corporate. In the previous section, we talk about greenwash or like this kind of things. It's not extreme, but it happens. For quite a lot of companies, as I know, they really want to get involved into upcycling project. But do they have enough information about the industry, how we can work on those projects and the storage space as well? Some are maker space. They want to make it for upcycling designer, but they don't have storage space. I'm not talking about fabricator, but quite a lot of maker space. I think they have goodwill, but they don't have the practice. I think this is the situation in Hong Kong. And Kate and Matt give us a very good direction to our next speaker. It's about the waste fabric, how we can deal with those material. And for Janko, as I know, she works on traditional traditional Chinese clothing. And the idea itself, the size of the fabric already gave us advantage to decrease the waste from the design at the beginning. So can you give us more information about what you are doing?
無論係一件中式衫，佢個結構或者裁剪 ，OK， 即係無論佢個結構或者裁剪咧，其實已經係一個好環保嘅概念。闊袍大袖，左一邊右一邊冇肩線嘅，咁係一整體嘅一塊布。佢個結構非常簡單。慳料嘅材嘅時候，咁無論佢係一啲嘅可能剩低嗰啲細片咧，我哋可以攞嚟做袋啦，甚至乎一啲紐扣，其實都係好側邊嗰啲碎料，我哋會用嚟做啦。咁呢一個喺個結構上面嘅嘢，同埋佢係一個包容性好大嘅一件服裝，佢係無論你係高矮肥瘦男女同一件衫，唔同嘅人着上身都係有唔同嘅感覺出嚟嘅。咁所以我覺得佢已經係有一件環保嘢。你唔着咪俾第二個咯，或者係因為佢係一個傳統文化嘅服飾嘅時候，佢個價值就係佢唔會因應個潮流而有任何嘅改變。咁所以我覺得推廣佢一件衫，其實已經覺得係一個好好嘅環保嘅概念落去，加上我哋教佢自己做，你唔使買㗎。呢件衫我哋有即係我哋有網上課程係教唔同世界嘅地方嘅人去自己製造呢件衫。咁所以我哋而家嘅學生係有12個國家，然後幾百個學生一齊喺網上面做，佢都做到自己嘅服飾嘅時候，我覺得我就係將呢個文化、將呢個環保嘅概念傳出去，咁就夠啦。可以係。
大家可以拎去睇下。
咁當然呢一件咧係我哋嘅產品，就唔係學員去一針一線去做嘅一啲嘅產品啦，係啦。
So what Janko just mentioned is about the theory of Chinese cutting itself is already very flexible and is one size for all. Most of the components or elements on the clothes itself is from not waste fabric, but it already designed to use the side material to do the button and some other components on the clothes. And another planning and operation for Janko is she put those learning material on internet or social media.
Online course.
So which means you can learn how to make your clothes. Actually, this action, I think, is very good because you get back the right to design what you wear, not controlled by any brands, fashion companies. So, but the way is you need to spend more time to learn or skills as well. So that's why when we have the first introduction about Janko's brand, it's not just about making clothes. It's to share the logic, how to let more people know how to make clothes and the idea behind.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's good to have this kind of practice for more design group and share knowledge. When we talk about this, we always ask, like this kind of project, how we evaluate the impact. Especially most of the conversation from Fraction Clinic, from Janko, is quite abstract. When we talk about those projects or those conversations with, for example, like retired sewing lady, we know how this kind of project empowered their life and to pass the knowledge. But how can we evaluate those impact at the end? So I would like to ask Bertha, how you do this kind of evaluation after you complete a project, or do you have any mindset or any evaluation system to set up before the project?
I get the hard question. So evaluation for our projects is actually something that I've been trying to work on. It's not quantifiable in the sense that we don't want to measure like traditional fashion companies where you just count how many clothes you sold, because that's not our goal at all. Like all of us are trying to educate and we're trying to do products that one person would treasure. So when it comes to evaluation, I actually look at it as to how many mindset that I have affected. So that sense, for example, our exhibition, when people come into a store, usually they don't want the sales or someone to bother them. They just kind of want to flick through everything. But we made it a point where we want to tell them the story, what we're doing. And at some point when they ask questions and actually really think about what we talk about is when I think I've made an impact, and that they would actually remember, hey, actually sustainable and upcycling is not as simple as it is. It's not something that it's supposed to be cheaper, or they should value the work of Hong Kong studios because the cost of living and of renting is so expensive that they got to make a living too. So I put in all these little points about the craftsmanship, about the design, about our creative talents. And if towards the end, there are maybe like a handful of people who come back to us and say, oh, I'm very excited about your next work or your next exhibition, then I think we have achieved what we wanted to do. So that's very vaguely how I evaluate the impact.
Thank you. So I think from our previous conversation here, there are some keywords I just marked down, which is like space, evaluation, transitional skills, like this kind of things. And when you guys are talking, what's in my mind is, what's the position for Hong Kong in the coming 10 years? Are we going to do production? Are we going to do demonstration or incubation? When we do production, we face the skills, traditional craft, worker. Do we have enough education program for next generation? And the storage space, the collaborator with, do we have enough company to do this? I'm not sure. You guys, do you have any question? Want to know more from our speaker? So it's time for you to ask question. Yeah.
Hello. My question is for Kay and Matt. So obviously now you had this project with PVH and you made the 2,000 garments, but what's next? How do you, because you didn't have space in your studio to do that. So obviously there's a lot of waste in the industry. There's a lot of upcycled collections that could be made, but how do we scale it? I work with like our factories in China or Turkey and tell them you need to do an upcycled collection. Yeah.
I guess we're constantly in conversation with different brands, different companies, because, I mean, after PVH, we worked with Adidas on sportswear redesign, which was very fun, but we did it more on a smaller scale even than Calvin Klein. But just having done the Calvin Klein project, they actually wanted it to become regional. So they invited us to actually participate they wanted us to do the Singapore, Japan, Korea, China, and we were like, how do we do it? Because sending all this dead stock, we can't send it all to Hong Kong, work on it, and then send it back. So with the travel restrictions, we still haven't moved forward with that. But we're in conversation, like how do we translate this? Do we find local facilities that can work on upcycling? And I mean, this project has created a lot of questions and challenges we have to figure out, because production waste is another thing. Like, what do we do? I mean, it was more like a pilot this time, but when we move it to, China or Seoul and Singapore, like, what do we do with the production waste when it grows? Because now it's 10 boxes that's left, but when it goes to China or Korea, we really need a solution before we just like jump into it. So that's why we're still having a conversation, finding out if there are people who can help us with the final kind of wastage.
But then, like in a more small scale way that we deal with those wastage, is we actually have a machine in our studio that we can put all the scraps together and then felt it into a new piece of fabric. So maybe you can talk about our machine for a little bit.
Yeah, so it's needle punching is a very actually simple mechanism. It's just a needle with the
felting needles.
Okay, sorry, felting needles. So we've got 3,000 needles just going up and down punching. With this, we can save a lot of fabric scraps, but of course it needs time and also labor to just put it through. So we've designed, products like home textile, like coasters, placemats, table runners, laptop cases. And I've just kind of done this collection in order to inspire people. So now we're talking to a French couture house. It's not supposed to be like, you won't see our name, but we're redesigning their stock into home textiles in which they're gonna give back to their team. So that's another pilot, because they keep having, things they can't sell, but of really high quality. So this is where our machine comes in, because feeding the fabric through and punching different fabrics together, you won't see the original form of it. So I think that's the beauty of it, and we're also looking on how to scale up.
Hi. So my question is upcycling. I'm an upcycler myself as well. Yesterday, I was talking about my experience I had in Africa. So all this stuff, the discarded, it's not even recycling or second-hand clothes, it's just discarded clothes which go there. Everybody has seen the pictures. We formed a little company, and we started upcycling, jeans into small pillows, or as you do, stuffed animals or bags. But these were discarded Calvin Klein jeans or, Adidas T-shirts. You can't really avoid the logos. So we actually infringed the copyright more or less, because we found a lot of Adidas T-shirts, we found a lot of Calvin Klein jeans, and we just made something out of it. You actually got all those stuff donated by the actual brand. But have you ever faced something like this, where you actually, like Redress, for example, they get all these donations from consumers, and I don't know how to actually avoid the copyright infringement on a bigger scale, not only one piece and two pieces, but on a bigger scale.
I think there is actually a really huge gray area, like within this topic. And then, but then like being in Hong Kong, I think it's still, you know what I mean, right? So.
I can share a little bit about what we do because we do upcycling luxury bags. So what we essentially do is we take secondhand vintage bags and we tear it apart. And I studied the problem of infringements law because, I mean, I don't know if you heard, like, for example, Hermes actually sued this NFT artist for making their bags. So I was really worried. But as Matt said, it's a gray area. So what we're doing is second time creation. So we added artwork on top of it, which makes it like okay to do it as long as you don't label it as this is an LV jacket or something, as long as you just name it something else. So I think that could work. You can just ignore the whole brand part and then obviously make sure that you're doing another creation out of it. So you're not using the brand to promote what you're doing. That's acceptable. Yeah, so I think that's okay for me to say.
Do we have any more questions from our live audience? If not, let's take a look if we have any questions from our online audience. No.
I
All
have
right.
another question.
Great.
Because like what we heard from a different project and maybe some project down there as well, how many projects can influence the policy? Like government, company, any experience about this? Because for example, when we work with no matter what big brands or like little company, how many cases or any experience that when you have the conversation with different collaborator, in between the project, you can influence their policy itself after the project or during the project. For example, the logo issue. If it's possible to change this kind of branding system or policy in their company or even like some other system as well. Is there any experience from you guys in your previous project and the difficulties as well to move this kind of boundary?
It's very difficult. I talked to one of the biggest factory asking for dead stock fabric, and some of the companies, even if the fabric doesn't even have logo, it's just they just patented the pattern. So for example, say like Burberry, you can't use it. They can't sell it as dead stock fabric, and it's just lying there. And there's no way that they will allow it. And even if they negotiated, oh, what if you use it for next collection, or what if you just sell it to sellers like anonymously, and the brand still said no. The reason is because they just don't want to deal with the complication of all these knockoff products on the street that they have no credit of. And in my area, I just think it's a limitation of creativity as well, because brands are so scared that like independent designers would kind of make use of what they have, like for example, a check pattern, and to make something that's better than them. So they need to keep everything within the company. So I think that's a very long road, and I actually personally don't think it's going to change just because big brands have the money and the lawyers and the marketing. Honestly, we can just do what we can do.
But then when you mentioned about, when Bertha mentioned about the fabric, I think I think being in Hong Kong, we're still quite behind, because like if you're talking about Burberry, like in London, they are donating the fabric to students, to school, and yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem that we've faced working with these big companies is that they always have to go through global. So the Calvin Klein project took us 1 year to complete because everything had to go back and forth, back and forth. So on another project, which was also an international brand, it was more flexible because our collaborator, the Hong Kong marketing person, found us a way to somehow not go through global, but go through global. So there's like a gray area and flexibility that he gave us in order for us to have complete control over everything in a short period of time, because he really wanted us to do the upcycling for them.
Okay.
So I think flexibility is a big thing if, big companies,
To have like this kind of mindset.
Yeah, for example, the big brands normally, when they have surplus or rejected items, they burn them. And I know in Europe there is actually a legislative in talks that, I think in France, where they actually say it's not allowed. And I think this is one step to actually say, okay, Burberry, especially because they have this in-your-face pattern, that would be actually, you can't burn it, whether it's in Bangladesh, whether it's in Indonesia, or wherever they produce it. You have to actually, put it into the upcycling, or just sell it as, next season or something. But this is really a huge issue. I mean, I was the one who actually had to lit the huge amount of rejected cycling trousers, and it just bled my heart. I mean, this was like 2001, but still, you just don't do it. It's disrespectful of the garment workers. It's disrespectful of the designers. It's, and if it's just a small quality issue, for heaven's sake, we have to, we have to lower the quality standards anyway, because otherwise you can't be sustainable anymore. So this is where actually the logo thing came from. The burning of the surplus and the other garments. Thank you.
Yes, I think here we found a very interesting situation. And I think it gives us all a question to think about is, from our point of view, it's an upcycling project. But maybe from the corporate's point of view, it's still a CSR project. So like this kind of position, I think before all those projects, we can think about this kind of situation and dynamics in our industry before we talk about like upcycling product, upcycling design, how we understand like this kind of what we so-called sustainability project in different stakeholders at the moment. So I think it's good to have more conversation with our speaker later when we finish this section. So thanks everyone, and thanks for our speaker as well. Thank you.
Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you, Bertha, Janko, Kay, Matt, and him for hosting this very fruitful and inspiring upcycling denim panel discussion. Please be seated. And I think it's good to bear in mind that upcycling can be taking more money and time and effort, because before the assemble stage, we have to first disassemble. All right? So thank you once again. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time for lunch after a very information-packed morning section. Feel free to take a break and enjoy lunch, but you may come back half an hour earlier. So our next afternoon section will start at 2 p.m. You may come back at 1:30 to check out the showcase booths area at the back. And the showcase area is open for viewing throughout the day. And we'll post some event highlights on our social media, so make sure you have followed us on social. If you haven't still followed us, you may scan the QR codes on the screen right now. We have Instagram and LinkedIn. You can scan the QR code and follow us. The next section at 2 p.m. is a panel discussion on next-gen fiber and fabrics. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you around.